Hello! I hate long YouTube intros, so let's get started, bitch. Welcome to this YouTube series where I will be exploring some of the most chaotic PS2 games from my childhood. I think a lot of them have gone unexplored in the video essay realm of YouTube, and I am here to fix that. So just some personal context. My video game journey started when I was about 5. My parents got me my first ever video game console, PS2, which eventually turned into the PSP, the Wii, the 360. I played them all. But with my PS2, because I was such a young kid, my parents really only bought me the games that were straight from like the DVD releases of that time. And so I had like Robots, Monster House, Cat in the Hat, Finding Nemo, The Incredibles, all these sorts of games. And I feel like they're a very niche subsection of the PS2 library now, but I know that people are out there. I know that some people have played the Cat in the Hat because there is a gameplay video on YouTube that has like 200,000 views. So I need to do this video where I do a deep dive into how batshit crazy this complete acid trip of a game is. And if you remember it, congrats. If you don't, you're about to see probably one of the weirdest PS2 games of all time. Cat in the Hat was created by Vivendi Games in 2003 on the PS2, Xbox, Game Boy Advance and PC, and takes after the batshit crazy movie of the same name. Fun fact, these developers also made Spyro, Enter the Dragonfly, The Simpsons Hit and Run, Robots and many more. The game was a bit of a flop alongside its movie counterpart, but I, in true delusional fashion, believe these two pieces of media were not intended for adults, thus should not be reviewed by them. Because this game quite frankly slaps, and if you played it as a kid, you'll know exactly what I mean. This game is really weird. There's a certain je ne sais quoi about the old PS2 games from this era. Like the Disney, SpongeBob or Bratz games, or really niche games like Monster House, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, or even A Dog's Life. Of course, Mike Myers is regretfully absent in this game, but the voice actor replacing him does a great job with the dry, sarcastic humour. The script actually does a reasonable job at following along the same style of comedy as the movie.
Meow! I've heard we're all just cogs in a machine, but this is ridiculous.
Though I feel like this is easier to read as an adult than when I was a kid, which is probably a similar critique I'd give to the movie. The game wastes no time, and musically it starts with an absolute bang. I love how the style and tone of this game is demonstrated the second you press the start button, but we need to talk about Cat. I love his mannerisms here, but something about his face looks so off. I think a slightly more cartoonish restyle would have worked better than them trying to replicate how Mike Myers looks in the movie. It's very aged and uncanny. So I know this game isn't about the plot, but we need to talk about it. It's pretty bland, there's no setup, and it doesn't make much sense, and Quinn is overall quite lacking in a boring villain here. But I have to give credit to the way this game works. By going between objects in the house, the designers had so much creative liberty to reimagine boring, mundane objects and turning them into fully realised fantasy lands. And side note, having the upstairs blocked off was a great but frustrating choice. You have no idea how badly I wanted to go up there when I was a kid. Integral side note, guess who plays the part of the fish?
Quinn, that nasty neighbor from next door, is wandering through the house collecting magic.
Did you guess Nolan North? Like the guy from Uncharted? Like the most famous video game voice actor of all time. And did you know that this was his first ever role? I watched it in an interview that he did. He started with the fish from the Cat in the Hat. Alright, let's get into the game. Level 1, Grandfather Clock. Wow, the nostalgia is starting to come into full effect. The Grandfather Clock is a full top to bottom representation of the inside of the clock, with time spinning all around you, cogs in full display, also including the bells and chimes that reside within. The gameplay here is quite simple: collect magic, complete small puzzles and platforming obstacles, and collect mini trinkets along the way. But the magic of this game doesn't come from the gameplay, which I will discuss in more detail later, by the way. Instead, the magic comes from the design and the immersion. The 3D models completely wrap around the path, making the cat feel so small around all of the ginormous clock parts. In particular, this exact green watch always struck me as really conveying the size of cat in this world. The background and floor of the path have this perfect old-timey wallpaper and carpet to make you feel like you're in your grandparents' living room. It matches the aesthetic perfectly. Stopwatches bounce and close in the background. Things around the map look so alive, like the whole space is breathing. This is what I mean when I'm talking about the acid trip. And then there's jumping puzzles in the form of massive clock parts or creepy as hell cuckoo clock enemies, and the whole path looks to be held up with the very mechanisms of the clock. The whole picture is just so complete. And then there's the piece de resistance. The end of the level takes you up to the tippy top of the clock where the ginormous clock face looms in the background, separating this part from the earlier sections so effectively with that massive white face. Essentially, the world around Cat is its own character with its own mannerisms and style, which is exactly the vision of Dr. Seuss. Fantastic example of respecting and understanding the source material. The health system comes in the form of literally the most delicious looking cakes I think I've ever seen. I want to eat this so badly. The checkpoints are these massive old-timey cameras that give you a dramatic flash every time you walk past. The collectibles are hard to reach keys or snappy little movie things which always give you a crisp clap upon picking up. The goals are so full of character with the huge exaggerated arms and hands. The teleporters and rockets look and feel so satisfying. It's like every mechanic of this game has gone through a creative chaos machine and come out the other side. As for the music of this section, I am in love. The music of this one sets the scene wonderfully. The many different chimes, ticks, and a striking driving tempo convey the theme time so excellently. It feels like the music is hot on your heels, saying hurry up and conveying a sense of real urgency. While I don't think it's quite as unique as some of the levels, I love the tempo of this track and I think that it's such a huge part of why this level feels so immersive. Level 2, Venus Flytrap. Time to go to the garden. This map probably has the largest range of varying scenery. The background changes so much, which I really appreciate. The beginning of this level feels like it's a lake around the back of your garden. It's hard to talk about any of this level without recognizing some of the batshit crazy enemies we have on this one. This insane bouncy thing. What is this part supposed to be, by the way? These stoned as hell Venus flytraps, these incredibly bizarre and eerie sentient paint cans, this blasé looking bee, these amazing bird/plant cutting hybrids which have a really particularly great design. It's all so bizarre and so uncalled for, and yet so creative and endearing. Some of them do feel out of place though. I feel like in an attempt to pad it out, they added some enemies that should have been left for later levels, like the Stamper Hand and the Yeti. The second part of this level is located in a somewhat garden shed. This is where the background starts to feel a little bit more alive again, like in the grandfather clock. And finally, it opens up into a tidy, well-kept, posh garden-looking area. These three areas all feel so distinct. It's crazy to me how the level designers managed to do that so effectively. Now, while this track isn't personally one of my favourites, I think it arguably does the best job at conveying the theme to the point where someone who's never played the game could figure out where this level is set. I think this track sets itself apart from the others by having very unique instruments and elements, like the flutes and bird calls that repeat throughout. And the different time signature makes it feel very rhythmic, with a bit of a samba feel. Level 3, Musical Madness. The world around Cat resembles the inside of a music studio, blending a mix of real instruments with recording equipment and electronics. Some notable set pieces include this massive finger scratching a record, the portals being snare drums, lots of music notes floating around, and instruments breathing and moving in the background. My personal favourite part of the level is when Cat goes through the teleporter and the jumping puzzle involves climbing up these disc trays. Such a simple puzzle, but it took 6-year-old me like literally half an hour. I love the creativity of this, the sound effects, the fact that the CD players look so ginormous stacked up like that. It's a complete picture. And this is a good chance to talk about how the game plays with the 3D environment. I simply adore how many times this game lets you explore things in the background, and then when you're done in that part, it goes back to being part of the set piece again. It's part of what makes the levels feel so big and explorable even though you're on a set path. There are some forgettable obstacles and enemies in this level, like the falling spiky ball and this bitch, which I think should have been kept for other levels once again. Onto this enemy, which I think just might be the weirdest, most uncomfortable, and craziest enemy in this whole game. Who is she? The eyes, the eyelashes, the spindly legs, the size, the way she hurts you, the breaths. You can't convince me this enemy wasn't designed during the middle of a psychedelic trip. Like, it is the only explanation. This track is cute, I like it. There's a 30-second or so segment that is by far the strongest part of the song. I love the colour and texture of the trumpet tone with the long drawn out and dramatic vibrato. I also think the occasional record scratches add some dimension to the song. However, unfortunately, I think this one lets me down a bit, specifically as it's the music level. It has so much to live up to and so much potential, but is unfortunately a bit forgettable and repetitive, bar the acclaimed 30-second fragment. Now, I apologise to all of the millions of Cat in the Hat PS2 fans out there, but I will not be covering the boss battles of this game. It is a considerably weak element of the game as a whole. I also could never beat them without parental guidance, so I have a personal vendetta. The music is solid, the design of Quinn's mech is okay, but otherwise the set and the gameplay of this boss battle is very not great. There's not much to say other than it's nowhere near as creative or interesting as the rest of this truly batshit crazy game, and very much comes across like an afterthought to pad out the runtime. Level 4, Freezer Burn. I love Freezer Burn. I believe in Freezer Burn supremacy. It is the best level of this game. I love Freezer Burn. The second I watched this level load in as I was writing the script, a huge smile came across my face. It sticks out so distinctly in my brain, not just in this game, but in my entire PS2 library as a whole. I love this level. I love it. The music is simply delicious. The level is dripping with color and personality and atmosphere. The idea is so great and the execution is to die for. I would defend this level with my life. The ice creams in the background at the start of the level look so yummy. I've always wanted a bite so bad. This lobster enemy is so creepy and unnerving. I love how ginormous he looks looming over Cat. I love the snowman decapitating himself in the background. I love the ice cube roadblocks. I love the Dr. Seuss-esque Arctic looking snow sock enemy things. I love how they quiver and shake as if they're cold, or maybe they're just dying to trample you. I love these ice pipe obstacles. They fit the theme so well. They're so snappy and they look really intimidating to me personally, like those pipes from Monster House. Once again, I love how they're itching to open. It seems like every enemy in this game is as manic and crazy as Cat, which I love. I think the freezer shelf section with all of the cold food in the background is a cinematic masterpiece. It is so captivating and atmospheric. The toasters are a great idea, but obviously feel so random in an ice level. This definitely should have been saved for the boiler level. Spoiler alert. The music for this level is truly laced with crack. The music for this level... Ugh. It is quick, simple, and snappy, but has a really chilling, angelic quality to it, which I just cannot get enough of. The haunting choir in the background gives it a ghostly quality, which just sounds so fantastic being juxtaposed with the upbeat, goofy beat behind it. I could be biased here, but it just screams cold to me. I also think it's the least irritating song to hear on repeat, simply because it's just so good. 10s across the board. This level was handcrafted by God himself. See, now that I've done Freezer Burn, it goes downhill from here. I'm sorry. I love this game. I really love this game, but Freezer Burn is the peak. Freezer Burn is where it's at. Level 5, Boiler Bonanza. This level is hard, bitch. I don't know why they cranked up the difficulty after Freezer Burn, but the rest of this game kind of drove me insane as a 5-year-old. Like, I couldn't do it. So with the idea of juxtaposing Freezer Burn, directly afterwards we jump straight into a furnace. It does look really cool. I love how the whole level is shown in different hues of red, orange, and yellow. The path that Kat walks upon looks like a fiery carpet, and the stains look like burn marks from all of the heat. These weird old-timey looking furnaces are so creepy and look so uncanny. Look at how they quiver, desperate to absolutely torch Kat to filth. These ones are actually one of my faves. I love their campy little dance, and I think that the idea of them blowing out steam is really cool, and I just love that sound effect. These heat squares, I think they resemble like a fireplace maybe, I'm not sure, but they're a really effective jumping puzzle that also made me want to rip my hair out as an incompetent 6-year-old. You'll only know this part if you've played the game, but this part broke me as a kid. I genuinely think a few tears were shed over the difficulty of this part in particular. It's very short and quick, but every time there's finally something new gameplay wise, I'm so relieved to see a bit of variation. The conveyor belts are hard, but really awesome. The music is cool, very much the same as what we've already heard, but with some on-theme industrial sound effect noises, which really suit the visuals. And the haunting choir is back, but a little bit drearier and more demonic this time, which is also on brand. Definitely a solid level overall. Now, for the rest of the levels, I'm sorry dear viewer, but I come with bad news. This is about the time where I drop off with my personal memories of the game. Wishy Washy was just too hard for me. So from now on, I'm going to just be going off of the YouTube video and how I feel about these levels as an adult. But the nostalgia has officially pissed off. So this is going to be a bit more of a cynical take. For the sake of brevity, and since we're only halfway through the actual game, I'm going to be talking about the rest of the levels quite quickly. An overall note for the rest of the game is that I feel like the creative liberties and genuine passion slowly diminishes as the game goes on. The songs really start to sound very similar to one another, and the repetition of the gameplay, and especially the overuse of enemies in every level, really becomes more apparent as time goes on, as much as it sucks to say. Wishy Washy, the laundry level, is much of the same as before, but has some cool moments such as these huge washing machines in the background that can actually be entered, which is really cool. The inside of the washing machine has a unique backdrop, and the slimy tentacle enemies work well with the theme. The song isn't anything special, but has some funky little moments every now and then. Mechanical Mayhem is a really strong level in my opinion, despite never having played it. The different environments are very dynamic. All the robotic and mechanical elements in the background are really interesting to look at. It looks very worn, grimy, and dirty throughout this level, like the inside of an engine, I guess. And this track is super strong, such a bop. The new enemy for this one, the projectile spewing goo things, which look cool, are on theme and have a new attack style, so I enjoy these two. Skip! Seeing Kat walk upstairs feels illegal. Chemistry Chaos is okay. I like the different textures on the floor. I like all the gooey test tube imagery. I love the electricity obstacles. It's so weird for me to see enemies like the Boingies, who in my mind have always belonged solely in Musical Madness, but fit so much better here in this level. The enemy crossovers are truly wild in this game, and I always play a mini game where I try to figure out which level every enemy truly belongs. Trouble Bath looks awesome. I love the toy sharks, the amount of water imagery, the rubber duckies, the sponges that litter all around the floor, the rainbows in the background. It all looks like really great as a full picture. It's colourful, attention grabbing, pretty, and in my opinion is probably one of the most Dr. Seuss looking levels of the game. The music is pretty forgettable in this one, bar a pretty 30-second segment that matches the prettiness of this level quite effectively. Attic Adventure is the final mainline level of the game, and is a bit of a letdown as a final hurrah. So many repeated enemies in this one, the backgrounds look quite dark and bland, and just has an overall washed out aesthetic that I don't enjoy very much. The music does not say horror at all, spare one small 30-second spooky motif. Mystical Mirror is the secret level that can be accessed when you receive all of the diamonds throughout the game. Nothing new is offered here, and they even reuse a lot of things here, like the paths from Venus Flytrap. The only thing I really like from this level is that the background resembles the weird water ride sequence from the movie that I really loved as a kid. I am insulted to have to review this disgrace of a final boss level and final level of the game, which is just a lazy reskin of the other two boss levels, this time not even in an interesting or imaginative set piece. Why do Conrad and Sally have number blocks in their toy chest? Sally is pretty much an adult in a kid's body, and Conrad probably can't spell. Super big letdown, but like I said earlier, the boss battles feel tacked on, so I really don't consider them an integral part of the overall Cat in the Hat on the PS2 experience. So unfortunately, though I love the style of this game, the gameplay is definitely pretty arse. Don't get me wrong, there's some interesting and creative ideas here and there, but the repetition and feeling like each world is less and less unique the more and more you go on definitely hurts the overall playing experience. This game is certainly for kids, so the repetition would mostly go unnoticed by the target audience, but most reviews I have read critique the gameplay heavily even if they enjoy the design and aesthetics. Which is fine. I think the design is what most people appreciate or remember about this game, judging by most of the comments I've read. I love this comment from the YouTube video. They say, "There's honestly something ethereal about this game. The early 2000s 3D graphics and funky music make it feel like a massive acid trip. Holy shit, this just triggered the most intense form of nostalgia I've felt in a long time. I can't even describe it." People were calling this game terrifying and scary, and I agree. It wasn't terrifying, I wouldn't say, but it definitely has an eerie quality to it. I think that the really bland, empty environments where it's just kind of Cat walking through these places is very eerie and very unnerving, and obviously Cat himself is a little bit scary. So I completely agree with those. Cat feels good. I just realized that's probably not the best way to phrase it. Cat feels so furry and so big and human-like, and he's got really long limbs, and I don't need to describe how he feels. Cat plays well, his responses feel snappy and quick, and little things like the hover mechanic are a good way to make the game feel a little simpler for kids without ruining the jumping puzzles. The tutorials are funny, but can really slow down progression and take up a lot of time. The longest I found was like 30 seconds long. It's just too long to stay engaged, though I always love what Cat has to say back to the fish.
Your land, but it probably won't be Kansas.
One fish, so many sushi restaurants.
Fuck you, Nolan North, you dumbass little fish. Don't tell me what to do. I know how to play this stupid game made for 5-year-olds, okay? You stupid little fish. The method of killing the many various enemies, predominantly shooting a bubble at them and capturing them, is an interesting concept, but becomes very tired, and there's not a whole lot of variation. Either ground pound or bubble them, that's basically it. And though I love the designs of the enemies, there's too many in each level to the point where they feel like an annoying ass obstacle rather than a challenge. The boxes are boring, the goo is fun at first but becomes boring, the goo machine can be borderline frustrating to have to reach sometimes and is a wildly overused mechanic. The parts of the level where Cat's in the bubble feel very repetitive. I think the best parts of the game are probably the jumping or timed move out of the way puzzles. At least these offer some genuine challenge and usually for me require a bit of practice. But by mystical mirror, even these have very much overstayed their welcome.
Strange to think you're at the bottom of the food chain.
I love how many like cunty little remarks Cat has to say back to Fish. Is his name Fish? To Nolan North. He's kind of like Mike Myers in Cat in the Hat, but a little bit more. I'd argue it's a little bit more adult. He kind of is a little bit more, there's even more fourth wall breaking. He's very on the nose, very sarcastic. I think the humor's really great in this game. And I think a lot of it went over my head as a kid. But now as an adult, I was pissing myself. This game is funny. I hate how his name's Cat, even though he's not, he's very much a humanoid cat. He's very grotesque, very ugly. So to wrap things up, I would say that this is a pretty good game. I think that the gameplay is arse, and if you're going in it to play like an actual good game, don't bother. It's really shit. But the acid trip realness, as I keep saying, is so off the charts, kooky and crazy. It's really memorable. It's very unique. This video is meant for people who played the game, have their little nostalgia, and understand what I'm talking about. So if you're one of those people, please comment down below what you thought, because I don't want to feel like this game is something that I had to endure on my own. And tell me what you thought about it. And let me know if you want to see more videos about these sorts of games. Like I said at the start, I played so many of these weird niche games on the PS2. I'd love to do them all. Let me know if you liked it. Let me know if you have any suggestions for the next video. And bye. If you're a fan of Thing 1 and 2, you've come to the right place.
Calling all Thing 1 and Thing 2 fans! Where you at?
Did you know that... Sorry, I got stage fright.